Hello and welcome. I'm Ann-Maree, the whole doctor, and today I'm going to be speaking with you about the oral contraceptive pill, female hormones, debunking some myths, and of course, weaving in my own personal experience as a woman on the pill and also my medical so-called expertise. So, the pill. It is a very controversial topic. It created such a revolution for women, and it's become such a mainstay that we barely even question its existence or how it's being used. It was originally introduced as the oral contraceptive pill. The contraceptive part has now dropped off a little bit, and it's more now well known as the pill. It is pretty much available globally, and it really revolutionized the way that women could show up in the world because women could finally have this mechanism of control over their fertility. And it has changed the face of how women present themselves in the world. It has changed how women maybe present themselves in their sexuality. It's changed the faces of families and family planning. And that's one side of it. The other side is that it became very apparent that it also controlled hormones. That's how it works. It manipulates from an external source the cyclical nature of women's hormones. So what are the consequences of this? We're basically placing a solution over the top of a naturally running system. And the medical profession saw this to great advantage because by using the pill, they were able to manipulate the hormonal landscape across a range of so-called women's issues. So the pill very quickly has become the go-to, the quick and easy solution, the non-invasive seemingly solution for a lot of women's issues. And these range from hormonal issues such as acne, PMS or PMT, emotional dysregulation, and of course, other conditions that are a little bit more sinister, such as endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, painful periods or heavy periods, dysmenorrhea, amenorrhagia, all of these conditions, the pill seems to be the solution for. And it has honestly, from my point of view, brought in a lot of laziness in the medical profession, particularly when it comes to women's health, because we seem to have this one go-to that at least is the first recommendation given to many women right from quite a young age when they are barely hitting their puberty all the way through until you are then criteria for hormone replacement therapy when you're an older woman and you're no longer reproducing, which essentially hormone replacement therapy is the pill just in a different outfit. So I want to tell you a little bit about my experience and my background of being on the pill. So I went on the pill at around the age of 15. From what I vaguely remember at that time, I was starting to get some pimples across the back of my shoulders. That was the main thing. I had started my period when I was in year 6 at school. So that's around age 11. And interestingly, even though there was years that I had been menstruating for without fuss, around that teenage year time, I suddenly bought into my family's history of, oh, we get painful periods in the women in our family. It was true for my mother and it was true for my older sister. And somehow I got looped in that. And reflecting back, that was never really an issue for me. But that kind of got bandied on top. You know, I remember being at the doctor's appointment. I remember also having a boyfriend at the time. So I was certainly interested in the contraceptive reasoning. And it was going to basically calm this hormonal storm of puberty and of those teenage years. However, I'd already gone through puberty. There was no addressing of my possible dietary issues, my nutritional status, my stress, or anything else that can also be going on for a teenage girl back in the 90s, which, you know, I think is even worse nowadays. And after that, I loved the control. I think as women, a lot of us really love control. It's how we feel safe in the world. And the pill really gives us that. And I took it to the extent of really manipulating my so-called period, which is not a period at all. It's really called a breakthrough bleed. And so I would cluster my packs together in order to not have a monthly breakthrough bleed, because I found it to be inconvenient and messy, and I just didn't want to have to go through that if I didn't need to, because that's really what we're fed as well in the mainstream media culturally as women, that if you can avoid having a period, great, but the natural way of avoiding having a period is to be pregnant, and I definitely didn't want that either. So I loved the pill. I loved it. I thought it was the best thing ever. I was very, very happily on it for many, many, many years. In many ways, it allowed me to be able to function, I believed, at my best, but I was functioning in a very monotone way because my hormonal world was very monotone. My emotional world, therefore, was also seemingly monotone, because our hormones and our emotions are very intricately linked, as any healthy, menstruating, reproductive woman should know and understand, and any man that's in her vicinity. So I basically remember my tailing off of the pill was actually, there was a pill that got created in the US called seasonal, and this was like, to me, the ultimate, because I would only have to have a period once a season. It's like, what are we, dogs? We go on heat. But I was really, really wanting to do this because I was doing it anyway, by clustering and packaging my pill each month to just skip those sugar pills, for example, in a triphasic pack, and then basically go through to the next month and try and skip that period. And I could normally get away with doing it sort of for 2 months, and then I would get breakthrough bleeding anyway. I changed my formulation so that it was easier for me to do that. And I was very encouraged by my general practitioner at the time to do that. And I'll get that out right now. This is not bashing general practitioners. It's not bashing doctors or anybody, or certainly any women on the pill. This is really about just illuminating, removing the veil, and having an honest conversation about everything that you may be taking on if you're on the pill, and the alternatives, and just reminding yourself about why you might be on the pill or why you're not on the pill. So seasonal was not available in Australia, which devastated me. And then I don't remember exactly the pinpoint of the shift, but I started getting a lot more into women's work. I was going through a healing journey myself, and I was really starting to recognize that I had discarded my body in pursuit of my intellect and my career. My body's only role in that was to stay out of the way, not get sick too often, and just move me through life. That was literally the relationship I had with my body. And so, of course, my periods were like a non-event. There was no deep connection with that cyclical nature of me. And the pill supported that. So it numbed it all out. So I finally arrived at a time where I'm in my late 30s at this stage. I'm ready to go off the pill. I had not been off the pill that entire time, so around 22 years straight. And then I found some material through my integrative health practitioner training that talked about seed cycling as a way to naturally support women's hormones. And this sounded too wacky to be true. It sounded too simple to be true, that just with some dietary modification, literally by ingesting seeds, certain seeds in a cyclical nature, I could really, really smooth out the hormonal changes throughout my month. So I thought, okay, I've got this tool that I can use. Maybe now's the time, let's go off and see what happens. The other major motivator for me to get off the pill was I was having absolutely crippling breakthrough migraines, estrogen breakthrough migraines. And these were horrendous, and they were very cyclical, and it was way worse than having a period. So I would be basically crippled with migraines for days on end when I was going through that estrogen withdrawal. So estrogen withdrawal symptoms. Shocking migraines. I was having these ideas that I might actually have a brain tumor, that there was something really wrong with me. And it wasn't as simple as this is a consequence of my hormones. And indeed it was, because pretty much as soon as I went off the pill, those headaches disappeared from my life. And I am so grateful for that. What I was bracing myself for was this hormonal onslaught of acne and PMS and painful periods, and then wanting to scramble back for the pill just to get back under control. But that didn't happen. Now, was I lucky? Maybe. At that stage, was my body very clean? I was eating very well, and I took on this seed cycling methodology. I really do think that that had a big role. Was I highly motivated to go off the pill? I absolutely was. So I think all of these things allowed me to have a smoother course. And so I definitely recommend seed cycling to my clients now that are not even just going off the pill, but just in general for women, for our health. It's a really, really supportive practice. So since that time, I've delved more into the broader picture of what these artificial hormones are doing to not only our physiology, but our emotional body and our energetic body as well. So I just want to bring in the story of hormones and our emotions and how they are so intricately linked, because this is another piece. We don't really honestly desire to live in a world where women are numbed out. That's not how we're supposed to be. And the actual reaction to that is that we have these really explosive storms. So if we are trying to numb our hormonal emotional wave for a lot of our month, then we can really get into far worse PMS symptoms than if we are just actually naturally allowing that wave to roll through and creating space for that. And this emotionality and the hormone picture are very, very intricately linked. And then from that, I'm going to go into what is really impacting our hormones from underneath or on top, whichever way you want to conceptualize it. But this is the sleeping beast that does not get talked about, that does not get addressed, because instead we have this really convenient Band-Aid solution in the oral contraceptive pill to obliterate a lot of symptoms and not actually deal with what might actually be causing those symptoms at a very, very root cause deep level. And in reality, is quite a simple problem to solve. So let's just go to a little bit of a screen share. And I'm going to share with you a couple of slides of one of my presentations that I have got in my Recharged Woman Blueprint, which is my signature 6-week program. So let's have a little bit of a look here at our slides. So emotions and hormones. As women, as I've just said, we are celebrated and crucified by our emotionality. We tend towards this reactivity because we have actually also been conditioned away from our natural language of emotion. It's very, very important for us as women to have this emotional world. And an emotional world is not stable. It also doesn't have to be volcanic. There is a really healthy waveform that we can learn to follow, respect, and harmonize with. We are trying to navigate the masculine, logic-driven world really as non-native speakers. And that's why we are getting this suppression of our hormonal world from so many different angles, and why the pill is such a sexy solution for this, because it's so damn convenient and apparently safe, because it's been around for so long and it's just a simple pill you take every day and you get all these other benefits as well, such as contraception, which many of us, if we are deep diving in that masculine logic driven world, we're very career driven, then we really want that control, that reliable control over our fertility, which is super important. So I respect that. I absolutely was there. The most inconvenient thing that could happen to me wasn't my car breaking down, it was me getting pregnant at a time in my life. And so I understand. So we need to come home to our emotional body in a healthy way to activate our superpowers and live from the balance of a masculine feminine polarity. This I go into a lot more detail in my one-on-one coaching and also in my program, because this is really key for my target clients, the women that really come to me for specific coaching. These are the women that are really, really in their masculine a lot of the time, because you are in your career, you are highly ambitious, and the world is telling you that this is a good thing to be, but we're really undermining a lot of our feminine aspects, our feminine power, and we get burnt out because we are completely out of balance. Okay, next slide. This is the big reveal in a way. This is the sleeping beast. So I want to talk about the hormonal aspects of this. So we know that we have key hormones every month for women. This is estrogen and progesterone predominantly are the ones that we talk about. Our hormonal cycle, if you want to look at a very generic model, we'll talk about the 28-day. There is absolutely normal variation around that. And I want to say that again. there is absolutely normal variation around that. So we have, say, the first 14 days, if you are a mythical 28 cycle woman, then your first 14 days is your follicular phase. You've got a rising of estrogen. And then at the 14-day mark, you'll start getting the estrogen falling as you're coming into the luteal phase, and progesterone starts to rise. And this is the natural cycle. This is the dance. I really like to compare it to our autonomic nervous system. So the parasympathetic and sympathetic, our fight and flight. I should say, if this is sympathetic, this is the fight and flight, and we have our parasympathetic. So on this side, our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. This is where we're wanting to actually make sure that we can be in our best state for digestion, for reproduction. And what that basically means is, I'm just going to let somebody in who's just appeared. And what this basically means is that essentially we want to make sure that we're existing in both of these states. So what does that actually mean? They are both relevant. They are both relevant. So being in a sympathetic nervous system state is important, but we don't want to live there. Being in a parasympathetic nervous system state is important, but we don't want to live there. And these two have this beautiful balance. Same with estrogen and progesterone. The natural swing between these two hormones really does need to happen. And it's very similar with our sleep hormones as well. This is a system replicated throughout our body. So what is the important thing here? This is the mother hormone. This is pregnenolone, okay? So pregnenolone is this mother hormone that is responsible for a lot of other hormones underneath her, including what I've got on my slide here: estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, testosterone, in fact. So this is also applicable for men. And so what happens is we've got this physiology that is really, really geared for survival. So when we are in fight and flight, and what I want you to think about is stress. When women are in stress, that means that they are in fight and flight. When you're in fight and flight, the predominant hormone that is necessary to be running around the body, other than adrenaline, is cortisol. Okay, cortisol is our key stress hormone. Now, if you look at this diagram here, cortisol, guess who the mama of cortisol is? It's pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is, so cortisol in a way is like a sibling to these other two hormones. So if cortisol is demanding a lot, we need a lot of cortisol because we're in this state, then guess what? The other two siblings are going to be starved out. And so we are getting this unnatural dumbing down and suppression of these other hormones. And so there's a whole cascade effect. This also includes thyroid hormone, but that's a different topic. So there is a cascade effect and a consequence as a result of this. And this is the big sleeping giant that may not be getting addressed for a lot of women. We're not addressing our underlying stress. And that is causing an absolute storm in our body between our estrogen and progesterone. So then they aren't functioning well, and we're getting all of these symptoms such as PMS, painful periods, and then we're reaching for something like the oral contraceptive pill. Now, all that pill is doing, I think that's all the slides I wanted to share. All that pill is actually doing is it's replacing what we should actually have normally happening. So where does this really leave us? It leaves us with choice. And as women, it's really, really important that we are aware of our choices, because I think a lot of us surrender our choices when we step into a general practitioner's office and we have maybe 10 minutes and that general practitioner needs to quickly fit us in a box. And for women, we get put in a box pretty quickly. It's women's issues, and there's this really, really simple go-to that we've got, which is the pill. But the consequences of that is you are not allowing your natural hormonal waves to actually move through. And now I'm going to move into more of the energetics, the woo of all of this, and really why this is even more important. And this is because we are actually unplugging ourselves from our natural innate gifts and abilities, from our intuition, our natural cauldron of energy within us, which is our hormonal waves and dysregularity, I guess, the variety, the seasons of our hormones. By not tapping into that, we're missing a lot of good stuff. So, for example, if you get really, really severe premenstrual syndrome or PMT, if you get this really deep moodiness or anger just before your period, then at that time, energetically, we are supposed to be starting to turn inwards. Now, that means we're going into a more reflective mode. We are turning into our inner guidance system. And that means that we're supposed to be receiving, because part of reflection is to now receive. We're in listening mode rather than doing, speaking, output mode. And your body, your intuition is speaking to you very, very deeply at that time, because then the idea is when you come into your bleed, that's when women are really naturally supposed to retreat from the world. And we are shedding physiologically, energetically, emotionally, creatively, in all aspects. It is a process of the natural life and death cycle. This is the time, this is a natural death. We are supposed to be going into a degree of mourning and releasing. So when we start looking this more at many layers, rather than just the physiology, we gain a lot more wisdom around it, and why the pill doesn't make much sense for us, because it's such a monotonal response and it's dumbing down all of these aspects of us. So the PMS piece is frequently our intuitive sense starting to scream at you louder and louder that something was really off during this cycle. Maybe I didn't eat very well. Maybe I didn't look after my sleep very well. Maybe I haven't been listening to my inner guidance and my inner intuition. Maybe I'm in the wrong relationship. Maybe I'm in the wrong job. And these things start to come out in very, very interesting, inconvenient, emotional ways for women. Fortunately or unfortunately, I used to view it as unfortunately, because when I had to be plugged in to a 9-to-5 structured work environment, there was no room for this routine, this cycle, this changeability, this seasonality of my natural hormonal system. There was less room for it. So that's where the pill also works really, really well. It keeps women in a very, very black and white functional state to be in the world, in that masculine model of 9-to-5, Monday to Friday, same thing each and every day, when we are absolutely not the same thing each and every day. So that PMS can be a big alarm bell that your higher self, that your wisdom is trying to tell you, hey, this is not the best for us. We are out of alignment somewhere here. And then when you are on your bleed, you start digging into that and you go, okay, well, this is where I can release. This is what no longer serves. And that is a really, really powerful practice. And then on the flip side, you get to come back through, and that as that estrogen starts to beautifully rise again and your bleed is ended, you will start to feel very, very social, very lit up, very vibrant. Now, why would you dumb that down by being on this monotone pharmaceutical option? Because don't you want all of that too? You can have all of that. But yeah, you need the darkness as well. You need that balance. That is what biology is. That is what nature is. It's the ups, the downs. It's the hormones are on, the hormones are off, the seesaw, the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, the light, the dark, the winter, the summer. This is nature. This is what we are. We are not supposed to fit into a box. And then what we are seeing, what I was seeing and really recognizing now, having stepped out, was we are seeing all these women's beautiful bodies expressing dis-ease in more and more ways to try and grab our attention that we are out of alignment. We are seeing increases in gynecological issues, which the pill is a quick solution for until it's not. We are seeing more surgeries being done, pelvic surgeries on women for, pain of unknown origin, pelvic pain of unknown origin, this mysterious thing. It's like, no, it's not unknown. There is something deeper going on beyond the organ system, and it's not addressed with the pill or with surgery. And that's why I'm not trying to poke at those things, because they have their role, but they're being used and abused. And a lot of women feel like that's their only option. And for me, that needs to change, because the system is the system. The system is going to run as it runs. The system, honestly, is overwhelmed, and the system is doing the absolute best it can with what it has. And that's where we have to get really, really aligned with our own inner authority. What is our body telling us? What is our intuition telling us? Is this for me? Is this for me now? Is this really necessary? I saw so many patients laying in the holding bay, going into surgery, that communicated to me that they weren't sure if they should be doing this. And I never coerced anybody, because it has to be your decision. And they often didn't feel that it was. And it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't need to be that way any longer. You really, really can take your power back, ask the questions, find different doctors to speak to, find different practitioners to speak to. The exploratory capacity to find answers for these issues has never been more rich, has never been more available to us in this global world. So I really, really encourage women to start reclaiming that authority within themselves and reclaiming that cyclical nature. And once you are there, you will really start to honor this incredible hormonal system, the beauty of it that we have, when you can create the space to fully respect it and allow it to run its course in a natural way. And that's one of the things that I really love to share now, because I feel like I've been on both sides of this. There is validity to both, but the most important validity is the one that you find for yourself. It's your answers. And there's people out there like me that are happy to give you this information and to guide you to your own answers. And that's really what's important. I feel that the days of this very prescribed medical model are really starting to collapse and fall away. So what is left under that? Us, our own individual intelligence and authority, holding our bodies as sovereign. And as women, this is so, so vital for us. And it really begins with us. It begins with recognizing the uniqueness of the female body, the uniqueness of our cyclical nature, and starting to bring that back in without the band-aid solutions that are kind of numbing everything and creating this false ceiling that we really don't need to live under. So that's what I have for you.